We're thrilled to have welcomed our first grandbaby recently. But growing this precious human hasn't been easy on our daughter. The unrelenting pregnancy fatigue really took it out of her.
One thing that helped was keeping her fluids up, and she loved Rehydrate. Rehydrate is an essential electrolyte drink made by some great guys right here in Brizzy. It's safe during pregnancy and breastfeeding and is like a magical little energy and hydration boost for mum and bub.
If you're growing a little human or are just feeling a little run down, grab some at Coles today. One of the things that I've loved about our journey together is just that acknowledgement that if we're not happy with something, we're the only ones who can change it.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time poor parent who just wants answers now.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time poor parent who just wants answers now. I'm not supposed to say that. We've got our kids saying that now.
We do. They're so gorgeous.
Hello. My name's Dr. Justin Coulson. I'm the author of 6 books about raising happy families, and I'm here with my wife, my co-host, my podcast partner, and my pretty much the favourite person in all the world, the one person that I would... You're shaking your head while I'm saying this.
That's such a long intro. Can't you just say my wife?
You're deserving of that intro, aren't you? Mrs. Happy Families, Kylie.
I love that you've got so many, descriptive words for me, but I'm happy with wife.
Do you think that, maybe we're stretching the friendship too far with our podcast listeners right now, but I've got a pet name for you. Should I mention that one? Or do you think that I should keep that to just between you and I? We can keep that. That's fine. Let's just move on with the podcast. I'm sorry for raising it. In my telephone, when I get a telephone call, my phone, I'm going to bring it up.
Okay.
I'm going to do it. I know I said I wouldn't, but you can't leave people hanging like that. Instead of it saying Kylie, it's okay, fine. I won't say it. Maybe
such a tease.
Maybe when you feel more comfortable with me sharing that, I can.
Well, let's just say I wanted to get a number plate that had the acronym for this wonderful name.
I don't think the acronym's going to sound very good.
It doesn't work because it's actually BDAS.
Yeah, BDAS.
Yeah, and I get the impression that people will kind of read that wrong.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Okay, well, we've gone this far into the podcast already. Kylie's pet name for how long? 20 years, 15 years, something like that? We've been married since the late 1990s, so we're up for like 22, 23 years of marriage now. But very early in our marriage, I just had all these different pet names, and one day I combined them all. And Kylie,
all of them together.
Well, there was probably a few that I missed out on, but the acronym is BDAS for Beautiful Darling Angel Sweetheart, which is, there you go. It's out there in the world. People know it now. And so when my phone rings, every now and again, it'll just say, my beautiful darling angel sweetheart is calling me. And I pick up the phone with a smile every time because I feel so good about that. Is that okay with you?
That's okay.
That's okay. Flashback to some feedback from the nieces who have been listening to our podcast. We've just gone too far, haven't we? We've just been all lovey-dovey.
I can see them rolling their eyes.
That's probably a really great segue actually into some feedback that we got on the podcast.
We did.
From Maureen, who sent an email through. I might read this because it's a bit about you.
Oh.
And it feels funny if you're reading feedback about you.
Oh, is that right?
This is what Maureen said. She said, I want to give you some feedback. I'm a mum to 2 teenagers, a 13-and-a-half-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy. And she said, kind of random, this feedback, but here it is. One of the most appealing things about the podcast to me is Kylie's voice.
That's so crazy. It's so crazy. My mum would agree with you. Maybe she's been talking to you.
Well, maybe Maureen is your mum. She's set up another email address. Maureen says, I could listen to Kylie speak all day. Her voice is very soothing and I think makes the listener really lean into what she's saying.
That's so sweet.
Isn't it?
That really is. That makes me feel happy.
And then Maureen adds this. She says, I've got some thoughts on a recent episode. I kind of had to laugh, but not laugh, the other day when I listened to the Ultimate Parenting Triggers episode. Maureen says, I realised the actual subject was about what the triggers are that makes these ringside events happen. But geez, if that's a bad morning in your house, you would be horrified to witness a bad morning in mine. And then she talks about, these 2 teenagers, boy and girl, who are bumping into each other and having their moments, highlights that it's maddening and exhausting, and says, you guys are clearly living this charmed life. She said it beautifully. Maureen's not giving us a hard time at all. But I started thinking about that and I thought maybe we haven't been clear enough in the I'll Do Better Tomorrow episodes about just how much we get it wrong.
Oh, do we have to?
Well, we don't have to do anything, but I just thought today it might be worth highlighting a couple of things. And
it's interesting as I listened to that feedback from Maureen. We've had a couple of conversations like that from different people over the last couple of weeks since I've joined you, and what stands out to me the most is that this has been a journey for you and me. We've been together now, like you said, for just over 20 odd years. And when we started out on this journey together, we were pretty bad at it all.
Yeah. I mean, the story that I tell at the start of my book, 21 Days to a Happier Family, highlights just how bad it was. I mean, you and I sat down after I had a really bad moment with the kids. With Chanel, our eldest. She was only 2 or 3 at the time, and I completely lost the plot. And that was where we sort of decided maybe I need to do something. I was concerning, and you weren't happy with the way I was behaving as a husband or as a father, and you kind of made that pretty clear to me. And we've made mistake after mistake after mistake over the last 20 years. It's just that as we've gotten older and wiser, we've been super intentional about trying to get better. So when people are watching or listening to what we're saying about how we are today, please don't think that we've always been like that. Like, we've still got a long way to go anyway, but we have not always been like that.
Well, and I think that it's proof that we all are evolving and that we're changing. And, if we're not, then what can we do about that? I think that one of the things that I've loved about our journey together is just that acknowledgement that if we're not happy with something, we're the only ones who can change it. And that process is a process. It's a journey and it takes time, and you're going to slip up along the way multiple times. But having, these skills in our toolbox to help us be better gives us hope that tomorrow we can actually have a better day.
And that's the purpose of the podcast, right? It's a hope-building podcast. I reckon so often people will say, I just want it to be better now. But you can't compress time. Time has to take its time, and there is no pill. It's a process.
No, and sometimes you hear something and you think, that sounds awesome. And when you try it, it doesn't work. But the process is, increment by increment, learning as you go. And it's through those challenges and tough times and getting it wrong that sometimes the lessons actually click a lot better.
That's where you grow. There's been so we've got these Happy Families memberships that people are paying either $12 a month or $17 a month for, depending on if you're a member or a premium member. All the info's at happyfamilies.com.au. Not sharing that as a plug so much as to highlight that this is a process. And we had one member, I won't mention this member's name, but she joined up towards the beginning of our Happy Families memberships, and it was really clear. She was quite explicit with us about how hard family life was and how much she was getting it wrong and how she felt like she was a lost cause. And it's been maybe 3 or 4 months. But this particular member has been really engaged at a level that very few members have. She's absolutely said, if I'm paying this $17 a month, I'm going to get every single cent's worth that I can out of it. And
we've seen the shift, haven't we?
We've seen this huge shift as she's gone through a painful process. And there's been a few times where she said, I can't do it anymore. It's too hard. I can't make my family happy. And recently we've had this engagement with her where she's like, not only is it making my family happy, but I've brought my friend into the membership because she wants to have a happy family like mine. It's transformational, but it takes time. And it's normally not 8 weeks or 16 weeks. It's normally a lot longer. And I'm sure that this person will have plenty of troughs and valleys before climbing new mountains. But that's kind of it, right? That's why we have this segment called I'll Do Better Tomorrow, because for the last 20 years, you and I have been saying, I got that wrong. I'll do better tomorrow.
So maybe after the break, we can kind of share a couple of things that we probably need to work on a little bit next week.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
For a happier family, try a Happy Families membership, because a happy family doesn't just happen. Details at happyfamilies.com.au.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time poor parent who just wants answers now. We're talking about I'll do better tomorrow. And I've got to confess, I absolutely blew it last Sunday. Sunday's the day of rest. It's the day where we're supposed to have good quality family time. And I can't remember when, but sometime around mid-morning, I stepped into the living room with a couple of games under my arms. I said, all right, kids, it's games time. And we were going to learn a new game. We were going to play some games.
Well, see, that's where you went wrong. You set it up so high. We had to learn a new game.
Yeah, but I can't remember what happened. I think we got an unexpected visitor, and all of a sudden the games sort of went out the window. But we never actually went back to the games for the whole day. I promised the kids a games day, and we didn't play an entire game. And I mean, I need to do better. I'll do better tomorrow. That's the purpose of this episode. We still get it wrong. And that day we had a commitment that evening, and we had to prepare for that. And the kids actually kind of missed out. They certainly missed out on me and my best after making this promise that ended up going unfulfilled. How about you? Can you do better than that in terms of getting things wrong?
Oh, I can do way better than that this week. So this week has been a pretty it's been an emotional roller coaster for me this week. I've really struggled with keeping my emotions in check. And
can I just jump in? I think I know where you're going. Can I suggest that you've struggled to keep your emotions in check because you haven't been able to keep your hormones in check? Can I say that without getting punched?
I think sometimes people kind of think hormones is just an excuse. But as I'm getting older, I am recognizing that hormones are playing a huge part in, I guess, my emotional well-being.
Only for 3 or 4 days a month.
Only for 3 or 4 days, but that 3 or 4 days feels like a really scary ride sometimes.
It's been a rough week.
It has been. And I think the hardest thing is being kind to myself when I'm in that space.
Could you be kind to us as well?
You're really starting to push it.
I'm sorry.
Being kind to myself and just recognizing that this isn't how it's always going to be. I think sometimes it's really easy to fall into
because menopause is coming, or I shouldn't have
You're
said
lucky
that.
you're sitting on the other side of the room right now.
Have said that.
And so the big challenge for me this week is just kind of being able to receive feedback that might come my way with acceptance. That's been tricky. One of the things that I have loved in this journey that we've taken together is seeing, I guess, your ability as my husband to evolve through that process with me. And in the early days, it was pretty messy. We really kind of butted heads in that kind of hormonal space because you just had no clue. You really didn't. You didn't have a clue what was going on. You were so caught up in wanting to fix the problem, and I didn't think I needed to be fixed.
Yeah, and I also kind of wanted to blame you. In fact, we should do an entire podcast episode about this if you're willing to go there. Because
okay. I'll take one for the team, ladies.
Well, I wanted to blame you, though, because I wanted to just say, well, it's in your head. Yeah, sure, it might be hormones, but just push through it. Like, stop letting your hormones determine whether you're going to be nice to me or nice to our children. And I think to sort of round out at least this part of the story, over the last however many months, years, whatever it's been, my acceptance that this is just going to be a really rough ride for a few days has actually helped you to get through it much better. Would that be fair to say?
Very much so. I think that, knowing that I'm not going to receive any resistance from you or pressure to just pick myself up and move forward, and receiving just acceptance that this is where I'm at right now and it's okay.
So now you're making it sound like we're perfect again. but
we're not.
It hasn't been a great week, let's be honest.
It's been a really tough week.
So, Maureen, there you go. I hope that satisfies you and helps you to realise that even the Happy Families family have our moments from time to time, whether it's just not fulfilling the promise of playing the board games on Sunday or some other monthly menstrual mania that happens to hit our family.
Mania. You're making this really big now.
Hey, we really appreciate you listening to the podcast. We hope that it brings you some joy and gives you some hope and a sense that your family can be happy even when things aren't quite right. If you do enjoy the podcast, please leave us a rating and review. We love getting those 5-star reviews come through on Apple Podcasts. It only takes a second and it really makes a difference for helping other people to find out about the podcast. We'll share a few of them in the next couple of days. And please share your feedback. Email podcasts with an S, podcasts@happyfamilies.com.au. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon and our executive producer is Craig Bruce. If you'd like more info about how we can make your family happier and maybe even join the Happy Families family, go to happyfamilies.com.au and click on memberships, or you can follow us on Facebook at Dr. Justin Coulson's Happy Families.